Yes, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the advanced data analytics, and that includes basic statistics, advanced statistics, machine learning, and advanced AI as well. And we're going to give an overview of the support that we give, and also several case studies, successful case studies and partnerships, and case studies from a wider network of collaborators within the medical domain. Next slide, please. So, talking now about the overall support and partners. So this slide is an overview of the types of support we offer in health data research. We have in mind academics and researchers at any point of their career and at any stage of the research development. So our objectives with this sort of support are, for example, for early career researchers, is to avoid noise within the data collection and problems with the experimental designs. So we assist designing better experiments. We can overlook the data collection process, and we also support the overall analytics. And for more seasoned researchers, our objective is to help promote reproducibility within healthcare, assist with promoting innovation, and offer digital support to a wider research group for professors. So to this point, we have the early stage support, which is we help with grant writing. So if there's any specifics of the data analytics or machine learning or AI that needs to be addressed in grant proposals, we're happy to help writing that. We assist with the design of the experiments, and this includes sample size, power calculation, the infrastructure that's needed to make the research more robust in terms of the technological aspects, and we help with the data collection design and defining the most suitable technologies for data handling. With regards to analytics, we provide any sort of data analysis to the most basic data visualization and basic statistics to advanced statistics, machine learning. But another thing that's been quite successful that we have been able to provide to medical researchers is actually end-to-end tools for decision making, where we provide the infrastructure for the data collection, storage. We use AI and advanced data analytics to support closed loop research. And we also provide support for simulation, for modeling and simulation. So if you, for example, now that COVID is being widely investigated, we support the development of models where we can simulate disease progression and things like that. In terms of reproducibility, Sam has talked a little bit about it. So we offer support for software development for data analytics, the data infrastructure, and code and data storage and sharing, just to make sure that we are in line with the new requirements from most of the research councils, where they do not only want high quality research, but they want this research to be reproducible, and the data and the methodology to be available for other researchers as well. So we have that in mind. We also provide training and supervision, and that's an important point because a lot of people knows DRS from the side of the service that we offer, but there's not a lot of people that know that we also supervise and co-supervise students. We support and mentor researchers. We provide training in data science, and we also provide coaching for funding interviews. So if you're applying for a fellowship or if you're applying for a grant and there might be questions regarding technology, data analytics, or machine learning, we are happy to support and create a panel of a mock interview to support training for better assessment of the grant proposal. In a wider aspect, we have several assets given the experience and the long years that we have been working with medical researchers. So we have a wider network of collaborators, so we can put you in touch with other researchers with similar interests. We can cross-pollinate research and also transfer techniques that were successful within one medical domain to another if we see that it fits. We are more than happy to sit and discuss ways to promote further innovation by adding technology to your research. And we also have access to some healthcare data sets that are publicly available and some data sets within the HDR domain. If they are available, we could try to work out how to have access to them. And another asset is the support from from the UK Tissue Directory Centre, which controls all the biobanks across the country, and the support from HDR as well. Having Phil Quinlan and having a big representation within the Midlands, we have access to assets, a little bit of funding as well. So I'm also going to present a few case studies that were financially supported by HDR and encouraged in general to promote better research around data with the support of HDR. So now I'm going to hand over to Henry Nanji, which is our medical statistician. He will outline the different sorts of techniques we can help with specific to data analytics. And then we'll show a range of examples of case studies and successful collaborators we've had with medical researchers. Next slide, please.
Right, good morning. My name is Henry Nanji. I'm one of the research statisticians and analysts at the Digital Research Service. I'm going to talk briefly about research designs, and I'm going to focus more specifically on the analytical methods which are applicable to medical research, as that is going to be my focus for the talk for today. Next slide, please. Now, two common research designs in medical research fall under the bigger umbrella of randomized controlled trials and observational studies. The design of any study is important knowledge when it comes to analyzing the data. Say, if your study is well designed, but poorly analyzed, that can be rescued by reanalyzing the data. However, if the study is poorly designed, it's beyond the redemption of any statistical method to actually fix that data. So it is important to make sure that the design of any study is taken into consideration when it comes to the analysis. Next slide, please. Now, different research designs often result in different data structures. If the underlying data structure is ignored, it can potentially overestimate or underestimate your results. Sometimes patients or participants could be nested within surgeries or hospitals or areas of interest, or maybe the outcome of the patient could be nested within the patient. Now, we've got these two different design data structures, and that presents different sort of challenges when it comes to analyzing the data. So it is important to understand this in relation to the research question that needs answering to ensure robust parameter estimates. Next slide, please. Now, there are so many statistical techniques that are applicable to medical research. I'm going to focus on the very commonly used ones in medical research. I'm also going to be citing some examples, and hopefully that will resonate with some of the data analysis researchers may potentially want to do. And DRS has statisticians and analysts who are very knowledgeable with some of these methods that are ready to support researchers in both within academia and in commercial setting. Now, one of the most popular statistical tools is known as the sample size calculation. Now, most funding agencies require investigators to often perform a power-based calculations before their study. Now, some journals like the BMJ now even have a checklist to ensure that a sample size calculation was done prior to the study and not in retrospect. Now, the cost of any study is usually proportional to the sample size, so funding agencies are always very keen to know that their money will be well spent and fit for purpose. If the sample size is very small, or it will not answer the research question, or if it's too big, you may get some results due to random variation. So DRS as a service, we have the capability to get involved in your research at the very start of the project. We could help with sample size calculations for studies involving hypothesis testing or maybe precision estimates. Next slide, please. Now, researchers collect data that can take form of numerical outcome, like say blood pressure, cholesterol level, or any biomarker of interest. If the outcome is numerical, they are often faced with the problems where they want to compare groups of populations. Say, for example, researchers want to investigate the effect of smoking on birth weight of babies from mother that smoke and mother that doesn't smoke. So you've got two groups where they have to compare. They may be interested in testing the effect of a new drug reducing blood pressure or cholesterol, for example. So they have got to compare two different groups of population here. They may also be interested in some sort of educational intervention to reduce weight. Say one group is given some kind of leaflet to read about reducing weight, and they've got two groups and the other group is given nothing. So they have to compare these two groups. So we've got some kind of techniques which we can actually support researchers if the outcome is continuous. In some cases, researchers may be faced with the problem where they want to predict a numerical outcome from one or two predictors or explanatory variables. If they are interested in predicting, say for example, they are interested in predicting the birth weight using the effect of gestational age of mothers, or they might want to predict the baby's birth weight using the combined effect of gestational age of the mother or maybe some other biomarkers of interest. There exists good methods like simple linear regression models or multiple regression models, which are capable of handling such data. Or they might be interested in comparing three groups of population if their mean is different. Therefore, analysis of variance become very, very handy. It may be a case where they want to investigate if the effect of age, of gestational age, to predict birth weight and a baby's birth weight, and is that different for mothers from different deprived area, or is it the same if that is the case? So does gestational age, is it the same does it predict birth weight, baby's birth weight in the same way for mothers from different areas of deprivation or not? Therefore, we've got some kind of interaction models which are quite capable of handling such data. Some clinicians may collect biomarkers for specific disease at different time points. And based on some clinical insight, they may want to know how the measurements made at these different time points are related to each other and how these measures sort of predict the outcome. And therefore, Different methods like long repeated measure analysis, where you apply linear mixed models, can become very, very handy. And sometimes the data also may be clustered, where you're interested in looking at groups of populations within your study, or sometimes the data may not be coded very well, and there might be some underlying distribution which needs to be captured. And we can also use finite mixture model to analyze this data. So DRS has got the capability. We've got statisticians and analysts who are quite comfortable with such techniques and can help researchers at different levels of their research in analyzing their data. Next slide, please. Researchers might have collected data that takes form of a binary measure. Say, for example, yes or no response, or disease or no disease, negative or positive, success or failure, or more generally, the presence or absence of any attribute of interest. I'm going to cite an example where imagine a vaccine has been developed for COVID-19 and scientists are interested to test if this vaccine works or not. So you've got two populations where you've got to be comparing their outcome. Researchers might be interested in predicting whether a person has an event of interest or not. In that case, we have to be using some kind of modeling to actually model the outcome. Say, for example, for patients with specific cancer type, they might be interested in knowing if the chance of cure depends on some risk factor, say maybe age of the patient or stage of their disease. Logistic regression models can actually handle that. And if they are interested in asking another question, is the effect of stage of their disease different for different subgroup populations, say maybe patients with some history of diabetes or cardiovascular disease. Therefore, we've got other models which we can actually come in and analyze this sort of data. It might also be a case where you've got repeated measure, say yes or no responses at different time points, and they are interested in analyzing such data. DRS has statisticians and analysts capable of applying complex statistical and modeling techniques and even machine learning techniques that can help support researchers in analyzing their data. Next slide, please. Sometimes the outcome of a patient or subject may be measured from the point where they enter the study onto a pre-specified critical event has occurred. E.g., you've got maybe time from diagnosis of cancer to death, or maybe time from admission to discharge from hospital, or maybe time from HIV infection to AIDS, or even time from breastfed to winning a baby. So they might be interested in finding out how all the factors affect survival. For example, maybe some biomarker of interest, say FibroScan or other interested biomarker to affect survival. Survival analysis are very efficient models that can actually answer this question, and we can actually model the outcome using models such as cost proportional hazard models. So researchers may want to tap into the resources DRS as a service has got, because we've got statistical analysts who are quite knowledgeable in these techniques, and hopefully we may be able to help in answering some of the questions that they may potentially have. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, the next one. Right, DRS has links and is currently working with all the research institutes or organizations in different disease areas and research disciplines. So we currently have extensive research involvement within the following teams. We work with the Nottingham Molecular Pathology team. We work with breast cancer team focusing on autoimmunity or specifically for breast cancer. We also have the School of Life, we work with the School of Life Sciences. We also have partnership with the Image Precision Beacon. We also work with NHS, medical education, and the School of Pharmacy. So it's worthwhile knowing our breadth and depth cuts across many different areas and research disciplines. Next slide, please. Right. Now, DRS, we've delivered some projects with the Nottingham Molecular Pathology Note. And I just want to cite two projects we've worked on here. Liver disease, where we've actually done some power calculations for that project. We've also applied some survivor analysis models to explain the association between death while adjusting for other biomarkers. We've also worked within the lung disease project, where we did a similar thing. And actually, this project has actually been submitted to a high impact journal, the American Journal for Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine, for publication. Next slide, please. Now, I've actually got this slide here just to bring certain concepts into perspective, because most often researchers tend to get statisticians or analysts involved only at the very end of their project when they have collected their data. And I make reference to this project where some variables were not captured correctly during that project, or there were too many outcome measures measured in that particular project. So there were some issues of questionnaire design, and some of the variables were missed or they were poorly captured. And once you've missed a variable or it was poorly captured, it becomes difficult to actually fix that when it comes to analyzing the results. So if researchers get involved with statisticians at the onset of the design, most of these problems that are often faced when it comes to analysis could be avoided to ensure quality of the research and that robust conclusions should be reached at every stage of the project. Right, I'm going to hand over now to Gracilia to talk more about some of the case studies that she's been involved with.
Yeah, so now I'm going to focus on more advanced machine learning and AI methods that have been created. So now we're going back to the work developed together with a wider network of researchers within the Nottingham Pathology Node. There's a website for the pathology node if you're interested to know the sort of work that has been developed. We've worked together and under the supervision of Professor John Garibaldi in the School of Computer Science. And the liver disease was developed together with Professor Guru. Lung disease and fibrosis was developed with Professor Gisli Jenkins and other researchers. And we're also going to show some work developed by Professor Lach in image analysis. So this was one of the main outputs from the data analytics work stream from the pathology node. It was a tool to support data analytics, mainly initially focusing on the data sets within the node, but can also now be extended to different healthcare data. So it was developed by Dr. Sisako Chernombrog under the supervision of Professor John. And our involvement within this tool was just to provide support to Sisako as she developed the tool, and also because she had to leave the project to take another position in Birmingham, we supported with the launching and the finalization of the tool. Next slide, please. This was a tool mainly developed by our collaborators, but this is also to show the sort of things that we can also develop within the digital research by using the knowledge and the expertise of the many collaborators that we have. So this was developed under the supervision of Professor Lach and Jing Cheng, Dr. Jing Cheng from computer science. The tool was developed by Dr. Mohamed Abdelmasia, and it was a tool for image segmentation. So they do tumor epithelium segmentation with immunohistochemical images staying for different biomarkers. So they have another tool as well, which is image for image classification. And this is the sort of analysis that can be done and the sort of tools that we can work into developing if you have image data as well. Next slide, please. So this was a tool that we developed with CEAC under the supervision of Professor John Robertson, Professor Herb Sewell, and collaboration with Dr. Paddy Tai and Dr. Ola Negem. So in CEAC, they're quite interested at detecting early stages of cancer by doing blood tests. And one of the main challenges that they have is they look at several antigens that might indicate or have upregulated responses to cancer. And they look at sometimes 60 or hundreds of different antigens, and they are looking to get a subset of 10 to 15 antigens in a panel that would support early stage detection of different types of cancer. So they look at breast cancer, lung cancer, colorectal, and also they started looking at pancreatic cancer. So the sort of solution that they had in the past was brute force. So they look at different combinations of all these panels, and they try to identify which one is the best panel to differentiate between cancer patients and control patients. And initially, this was taking months for us to be able to narrow down a panel. We tried some solutions using HPC, but then we came to conclusion that we had to use sophisticated AI tools to help with this problem, because we could not afford to wait months to get these results, then send the results back to Ola and Professor John Robertson for them to go back to the lab and replicate experiments. So what we have done was to create an optimization tool based on a technique called genetic algorithms, which is an AI technique. And we are now able to produce results for thousands of different antigens in a matter of hours. So they give us the data set in the beginning of the day. In the end of the day, we already have the results for them, and they will know which ones are the panels that need to be narrowed down for further experimentation. And this tool was so successful, and now we're trying to apply the same principle to identify genes that might detect diseases such as dementia and other diseases where we need to find a subset or a panel of genes that might indicate any sign of disease progression. Next slide, please. So this was probably one of the most high profile and successful case studies within the Digital Research Service. This was developed back in when there was just the Advanced Data Analysis Center, and it was not the Digital Research Service. I don't know if you know, but the Advanced Data Analysis Center is now the research arm within the Digital Research Service. It was developed under the supervision of Professor John Garibaldi and Dr. Andy Green and the team led by Professor Ian Ellis. they were looking at different biomarkers to detect different types of cancer. And Dr. Daniel Soria, who worked back in the days in the Advanced Data Analysis Center, came up with a sophisticated AI mechanism and narrowed it down to 7 different types of classes of breast cancer, which are now being used and tested worldwide, because it was a very robust methodology, and the papers that came out of this research are now quite high profile. So there is still research going on, and together with Professor John Garibaldi, we also support overall data analytics for the NPI and NPI plus research as well. Next slide, please. So this is not so much related in particular with the medical school, but it's also relevant. This is the sort of support and collaboration that we are closely involved with Professor Morgan Alexander on his program grant. So this is a huge grant with many researchers and academics involved. And what they're looking into is to provide high throughput screening for biomaterials discovery. So they're interested in biomaterials that promote immune modulation and prevent bacterial and fungal attachment. And they contact us initially for supporting data analytics, but the partnership has been so successful that now we are involved in many aspects of the research, and we're looking into creating to enable an environment for closed loop research. So it might be one of the pioneer closed loop research approaches within the university that we know of. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is the sort of the present support that we are giving to the program grant. So we provide infrastructure for data repository, code sharing, and also data archiving when the papers get published, or to promote reproducibility of research. We have a stream which is intelligent data analysis of the current data sets that they have, and we've been doing this analysis to understand what are the materials properties that lead to the biological endpoint that they're interested at. And we also do the prediction of structure activity relationships, which are have to do with, if we are to design new materials, what are the main properties that we need to take into consideration to induce a specific biological phenomenon. Next slide, please. So in terms of the intelligent management, so this is what we're trying to do for the future, is to have an intelligent data repository where we can guarantee that the data is being added to repository consistently, the data is checked for errors, and the metadata is acceptable, so that we promote research reproducibility and also data quality for the longevity of the program grant. So even though the program grant is due to finish next year, the data will be robust enough so that researchers in 5-10 years time, if they want to go back to the data, is all properly annotated. It's all under version control, all the code is reproducible, and it will make it easier for both PhD students and researchers to pick up on the previous research that has been done and do comparison of results, or further the clinical and the in vitro experiments that they want to do. So this is mostly the infrastructure framework to allow for reproducibility research. And on the other aspect, can you, next slide, please. So this is what by having conversations within the program grant, we thought that we could add to their research to make it even more exciting, and using the currently the buzzwords that the research councils are very interested at is like, how can we add artificial intelligence to make the research more robust and to make the findings a bit accelerate the research process in general, and try to produce new hypotheses using artificial intelligence methods. So we have this intelligent data repository now, and we can extract useful information from multiple data sets and generate new hypotheses and generate intelligent designs of new materials. So this is the overall vision and is the research we are conducting at the moment. Next slide, please. Yes, so in the future, this was the proposal that I set and proposed to Professor Morgan Alexander, and he was happy to support this, is where we're going to have a complete infrastructure for closed loop research, where we add intelligence to every single aspect of the research process that they are conducting. And we allow for a nice framework for closed loop research and hypothesis generation. Next